Number one mistake you can make when you're getting back into running after like a long hiatus or some time off, or in my case like a sinus surgery. Been quite a while at this point still since I've started training. I know I kind of started back in January, but really didn't really get into a proper routine before my calf kind of blew up again. But the number one thing that you should keep in mind is to not compare yourself to yourself. Now that's weird because I think comparing yourself to yourself is one of the best things about running sometimes, because you know, you don't necessarily always want to compare yourself to other people. You are you, they are them. You don't really want to compare yourself to them, but at the same time, the same principle sort of applies to yourself. What I mean by that is you don't really want to compare yourself to your old self. I'm being hit with this in a real way because, you know, I'm 31 now. I ran all my best running times back when I was 21 to 25, I guess, 21 to 24 maybe. So I mean, I'm sitting here looking back and I'm not gonna get back to that, nor do I really care to get back to that. The chapter, you know, the book is closed on that. I'm in the next chapter of my life. It's actually interesting because last night my 1500 meter record at Virginia Tech was broken. So definitely kind of facing that in very much a reality that I'm not gonna be at that level, don't really care to be at that level. And also definitely a little bit of a lesson in humility as well. I'm super proud of the kid who broke it, but when you work really hard for something, lots of blood, sweat, and tears into something, and years of hard work, and you have this record, you're the best of all time at that school, and then it gets broken. It just, you know, it just stings a little bit, but thankfully woke up this morning, totally clear-headed about it, really happy for the kid who did it. He's worked extremely hard, and not to mention he had an entire year last year completely stolen because of COVID. I mean, completely lost a season, so thankfully was able to keep himself healthy and train hard and came back and broke that record this year. So really happy for that kid. I called him last night and he was super stoked about it. So, but back to that lesson, it's just, you really can't compare yourself to your old self in cases like that. Let's say you're 55 years old and you in your 20s and 30s, you trained really hard. You know, you worked really hard back then. You trained smart, you focused on diet, nutrition, sleep, all that. And now you're 55 years old. And we've had people at Runners Connect do this all the time. They're like, why can I not beat these PRs from when I was, 32 years old? Because you were 32 years old. Now you're 56 or whatever. You can't compare yourself to your old self in context. Like, some people like to compare themselves to themselves, a year ago. That's great. I think you love to see that sort of progression, but at some point, it's not just age, but it's also just context. For me, I'm 31. I'm still pretty young. I could probably, if I really wanted to, I could probably run pretty well and train hard and run some good times, but I'm not gonna beat myself from 21 to 24 because, yes, I was a little younger. More importantly, I was training extremely hard. It was my life. It was everything back then to train hard. I mean, everything was focused around running and everything was focused around making an Olympic team. That was it. That's all I cared about. So now that's not where I'm at in my life. That's not my focus anymore. So the running and endurance goals now are much like, I don't want to say softer because I want to take on like new challenges, not necessarily try to run a mile as fast as I can because that's been there, done that, but take on some new challenges. So that's why I am kind of building up the endurance while also doing a lot of work in the weight room as well. So anyway, that's why today we're going to go on a nice little 20, maybe 30-minute jog, really slow with the dogs, and not care about the time, not care about the pace, just go run. So I know I'm pretty much in the exact same spot that I was like a few months ago, basically more or less starting from scratch from a training angle. But in between that, I had definitely some sort of calf tear. I didn't get it diagnosed or anything. I just kind of rested. And then obviously I had sinus surgery now, just over 2 weeks ago. Was it 16 days ago now? So obviously a lot's happened since then, kind of starting over. So that's just kind of how it goes when you're working back. But as I was talking about at the beginning of this video, with not comparing yourself to your former self, that's kind of really what I'm having to do, because I remember what it was like to be in insanely good shape and just feel amazing all the time. Like, maybe not amazing all the time, but for, you know, 6-minute miles, 5:45 miles to feel pretty easy. Whereas now, right now, I'm probably running, shit, I don't know, 8:30, 9-minute pace. I'm on a trail, so, and I'm also, you know, I'm running with the dogs. They're taking a little while to keep up. So we're going nice and slow, but that's probably for the best. So, I mean, just kind of have to really think about where you are right now. It's one thing, again, if you're comparing yourself to 1 year ago, that's a different story. But if you're comparing yourself to like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you can't just look at that and say, well, that's me now. There's age, and then there's, like I said, there's context. So for me, that context is, well, I haven't done endurance training in a long time. I'm overall pretty fit, you know, just like general fitness wise, which is great. But endurance fitness is just really weak, which is why I'm breathing this hard, talking right now at this sort of pace. Just got to build up that endurance. So it's gonna take time, no biggie. Well, made it right about 30 minutes before I could just kind of tell that the calves were starting to tighten up a little bit. So decided to cut it short here today. Gonna walk it in. Boys are not too displeased about that. So I think they're pretty happy that we're walking it in. It's actually pretty warm today. It's like upper 60s, but with the sun, right now it's cloudy, but sun kind of beating down, feels a little warmer. So I mean, this is just another part of that humility, is saying, hey, even a 30-minute run right now for me is, for my body, is kind of a lot. It's not a lot like total load, it's just a lot on my legs, on my calves, because they're just not, they don't have that running kind of like endurance fitness right now. I think they're pretty strong in general, but it's the calves, the Achilles tendons, all that stuff that in that running motion, that running strength is actually relatively weak right now. So that's why we just got to cut it off short, and probably going to do a little bit more biking for these first few weeks or so and get the endurance up and kind of slowly build up the running, but really take my time with it, no doubt. Come here, boys. Come on, let's get some water. Hang on. Yeah, Luca, wait. Okay, bro, come on, here's your water. Let Bro get some, Luca. Luca, come on. Hey, Luca, let's let Bro get some. Come on, Bro. Good boy. Good boy. Yes, sir.